So what we'll do offensive line wise, and you saw this in the spring being at practice. Nestor and Hubbard both played guard and tackle. Yates played center and guard. Now he has the ability to play tackle. He started a bunch of games there, and so we really did that all spring. Um, on the left side, Malone has the capability of playing inside and outside as well. Um, and then talking about the receivers, it's really going to be a little trial and error in fall camp. Um, it's easier to move those guys around. Devin Carter and Cortez will definitely play. Devin will definitely play Z. Cortez will definitely play X. But Preston, Jeremiah, E.J. Horton, those guys will move around. Jay Sean Polk, we're going to move those guys around and really figure out what's the best way to use them. Defensively is defensive line-wise, we're going to have the ability to move. Like Lockhart can play tackle or nose. Sean Martin's got some flexibility. And then both those linebacker positions, how we're playing them now, are very similar. And so even though, like, I got in front of me here is Tariq Austin Caves listed to Mike, he's going to know the will too. And so – and we've been training that way going back to January where there's a little bit more interchangeable than they have been. And then in the secondary, we really – and you and I talked about this when we had our one-on-one – is our spear, our cat, and our free is really training all those guys that are safeties how to play those spots. No, they're the same. Yeah, they're the same. We went out and got Tyron. We were just trying to add some size there, but Jared will be used in very similar ways. I think he's. People always forget. Everybody wants to talk about who you have coming back and who you added through the portal. The thing that people don't talk about enough is the improvement of the guys that were on your team. And like I think Jared's one of those guys that can really make a jump. He's always been a really good pass rusher, but I think he'll have a much better I think he'll be much better on an every down basis this fall. Yeah, so we have 2 spots, and that's intentional, so we won't fill both of them, but we could potentially add one more if the certain position became available and he was the right fit. Yeah, I think best available defensively. Yeah, best available. If there was somebody that came that could make us better defensively, we have a spot that we're willing to use on that. Yeah. I don't know enough about it. I can't give you a really good answer on that because I don't know enough about it. I probably read the same article you did where I saw they created kind of a coalition. And I think what they're looking for the same thing that we're looking for from the federal government, which is everybody is on the same page and everybody's playing by the same rules. I think that's what they're looking for as well. But I don't know enough about it just to speak about it in general. Yeah, Gus and I were talking about this last night. Less impact in football than the other sports, because you're only going to play at max 4 or at max 5 away games, minimum 4. Where it really hurts you is if you play an away game at night. And what happens is, multiple times last year, we saw the sun come up before I was back in my house, and so what that does, that really hurts your preparation on Sunday and Monday. That's where you really see it because your recovery, your sleep's off, all your patterns are off. And so less of effect than other sports, but it still does affect. Yeah, I think the thing that maybe makes ours a little bit different is structure, and then the people that are attached to it. Not only Mr. Ken Kendrick and Oliver Luck, but also the board that's part of the trust. I think that makes it different. Um, and so, I think and I said this to Mike earlier, is the infrastructure of that organization was done really well, and it was done with a long term. Yeah, I'm a fan of the midweek games, as long as it works. I said this earlier. We have a unique situation because we share a parking lot with the hospital, um, and so that makes it a little harder. But we played 3 midweek games last year, and they all had really high TV ratings. They helped us in recruiting. We went 2-1 in those games. I thought we played well in all 3 of them with the chance to win. Um, and so I think it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense for our league. It makes a lot of sense for us, for West Virginia. It's something that really, as West Virginia was growing in the early 2000s, that was an aspect that really grew, our logo, our brand. It grew the football program by playing those midweek games. And so I think it's something that can benefit us in the future as well. So, Caden, what you got, buddy? So, yeah, so who inspired me is so my dad and my grandfather were both coaches. And so, probably inspiration for coaching starts with them. My uncle was a basketball coach, and so spent a lot of time in the gym with him. And so, those would be my chief inspiration. I was very fortunate early in my career that I played for guys that went on and were really successful. Hal Mummy, Mike Leach, Chris Hatcher, Sonny Dykes. And so those are some of the guys that I was around at an early age. And then you asked on the TV set about if I was going, what NFL team would I want to? And so remember I told you, I was like, we didn't have an NFL team in Kentucky. So the closest one for us, if we were going to go to a game, was the Bengals. So if I had to pick one, I would say them. Well, hopefully my kids first and foremost. But no, I think it's the young people that are in our building every day. Hopefully by the standard that not only myself but our staff is setting, that we're making a difference. Yep, no problem. Yeah, well, he scored a lot of touchdowns when we were there. We weren't great on defense, so he had some big plays. He very strong route runner. He that's the thing. He was explosive in a short space, but he was really strong, and I thought he broke a lot of tackles for a receiver. And at that time, they didn't do that a whole lot. Barry, how are you? Yep. Yeah, well, I'll say this is for us being the easternmost team forever and really being a geographic outlier, it's going to be huge for us. It's going to be a really good fit for our fans. Like Cincinnati, that's a natural rivalry. It's about 4.5-hour drive between the two schools. We recruit the same people. We have history in a previous league, so I think that's natural. UCF being on the East Coast definitely helps. Not a drivable game, but it definitely helps. But yeah, I think I wouldn't be off by saying we've kind of felt like the new, like, look at our logo here. Those are our school colors. You know what I mean? Like, and so, like, we've kind of felt like the new kid for a long time. And this is a great league, but it's tough. And I think they have the benefit of 3 of the 4 head coaches have been in the Power 5 leagues before. They know what the league. Dana obviously knows the league really well. and Gus being in the SEC and Sat just coming from the ACC. So they've been through the grind of it. So they know what to expect, and they'll be able to prepare their teams.
You mentioned the time zone. Does just being in the same time zone, does that help?
Yeah.
Preparation, travel, all those things?
It's more so of everything that's set from the league office is in Central Time Zone. So at least we got a couple other Eastern Conference Time Zone guys in there with us. It really doesn't affect. It doesn't. It's the only negative, and I could talk about positives forever. And just before you walked over here, they asked about travel. The only hard thing being where we're located is a night away game. If we play a Saturday night game, it really affects your Sunday, Monday, because if you play a Saturday night game in Texas, a lot of times you're not getting back, and it's close to seeing the sun come up. And so that affects your preparation on Sunday, Monday. It doesn't affect the game at all. It affects next week's game potentially because you got to be careful, but it doesn't affect the game. I think that's if there was that's the only negative. Now, the other sport, it's harder. You know, playing basketball and all the Olympic sports, it's harder.
Coach, I just wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
what did you think of TCU's year last year and just the job that Coach Dyke has done over there?
Yeah, I was fired up for Sonny. We played a really close contest there in Morgantown. We had a chance to win. Our running back got hurt, but they just had one of those years that you have sometimes. They created a lot of really good fortune for themselves, and I mean that. They created it. Sonny coached me my first year in college, and so I've known him for a really long time. I appreciate his path. You know, he kind of his second opportunity in the Power Five, and he made the most of it. And he's well liked throughout college football. And so Max Duggan went on a run. They changed defensive schemes. I thought the kids really bought into that. They did a good job in the portal, not necessarily getting high-profile guys, but getting guys that fit into their schemes. And then offensively, they had some players, you know, and they got the ball to them. So, and they had an offensive line that returned that had a lot of experience. And so happy for them. I thought it was great for the league as well. Yeah, you know, really, if you look at the losses, the one that really sticks out is Dante Stills, just because he played so much football. You know, he's I think he's played in the most games of any Mountaineer in history. He was really productive for a long time, and so we're going to miss that. We're not necessarily going to just replace that by any one individual. It's going to be a group effort. Now, we have more depth on the defensive line than we've had. Lee Koba is a junior college transfer, and my experience as a position coach, coordinator, then as a head coach is there's always a big jump between your first and second year when you're coming from junior college. And I think we'll see that with him. I really feel like he's got a chance to be one of the leading tacklers. I think he's got a chance to be an all-conference player, and we're going to need that. Not only is he the most physical presence we have, but he's also the emotional leader on that side of the ball as well.
There's been a lot of talk about realignment, obviously, outside of maybe the Big 12 or even West Virginia's history. I feel like it's been good or bad for the sport overall.
Well, I don't know. I think it's way too early. You know, I think as far as whether it's good or bad will be told 20, 25 years from now. The only thing that I think is bad, it's hurt the fan base. It's hurt fans. Like some of the recent rules, like transfer portal, coaches are going to figure out how to deal with that. You know, you're going to gain some, you're going to lose some. What really hurts is your fan. You know, the fan that's your season ticket holder that gets used to going to the game and seeing guys come back and play 2, 3, 4 years in a row. Maybe that doesn't happen as much. The fan that loves rivalries, you know, there's been endless talk about Oklahoma and Texas. Now, I don't really care about that, but, like, that's a great rivalry for college football. You know, that's where the fans are hurt because you lose some of these rivalries that are natural, right? Like, our schedule's way more challenging than it probably needs to be, but from our fans' perspective, like, we played Virginia Tech. What's a great game for our fans? They can drive to it away, at home. That's a rivalry that has a long history. Playing Pittsburgh, you know, one of the best rivalries in all of college football. That's a great game for our fans. And so I think if anyone's suffering through this some of the changes, just not realignment, but just the changes in college football the last couple of years. It's been the fans. But from a coach, player, it doesn't really affect us a whole lot.
How many of your fans make those trips to Lubbock and Kansas and now Pro?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to put a number on it, but our fans have gotten around. Now they're not going to do multiple ones. You know, when they were in the old Big East, they could drive to multiple away games. That doesn't happen here. You know, now I think you'll see a big contingent. We play Cincinnati at home this year, but when we play Cincinnati on the road, I think you'll see a big contingent of West Virginia fans go to that game because it's drivable. We had a big turnout last year at Virginia Tech because it's a very easily accessible game. Yeah, so we opened up the conference versus them, and they've had our number a little bit. We've played some of our worst games of the year each of the last 4 years versus Texas Tech. Known Joey for a long time, happy for his success. I knew him when I was the coordinator at Tech, and he was head coach at Cedar Hill, and he always had a lot of respect for him. Got to know him even more when he was at Baylor, and not surprised at the success he had. He got a ton of energy, very well connected. He hired a quality staff, and they had good players there. You know, they had some good players there, and he got those guys to believe in the system, and they had a successful year. They play a really challenging schedule also, and so it'll be a challenge for them. Probably used to worry about that more so before we had the OTAs. So now that we're able to do some football fundamental work with them, and we're able to do some plays and some classroom time, so less concerned about that now compared to 3 or 4 years in the previous years where they really were on their own for all football activities. And so now we're not necessarily – the rules are you can't go against anybody. There can't be a defender in front of you on offense. Defense can't go against formations. So there's going to be some of that once we get into – because they've been doing 7-on-7. And there's some good things about that. You get repetitions. There are also some bad things because there's nobody rushing the quarterback. But there's less concerns, to your question, of what there used to be. Yeah, I think so this is my feeling on it. We have a great on-field product. So for all the issues we have in college sports or in college football, the product is not an issue. And so I do understand why we messed with it a little bit, because we kind of want to do what the NFL does, which is fit it within a time frame. I don't necessarily think we needed to do that. I think we could have cleaned up some instant replay and some other ideas to do that. But I don't think there'll be a big change. I'm not sure the casual fan will notice. From a coaching perspective, the rules go back within the last 2 minutes, and so it won't necessarily affect a whole lot you do from a coaching perspective. I think you'll lose 5 or 6 plays. That's kind of what I think. Now, you may ask me a year from now, and I could be wrong, but that's kind of going into the year, that's kind of what I think. Yeah, on offense? Off season. Yeah, so we talk about being better. You know, like, so the way we break our year down into is you have your winter, your spring, your summer, your fall camp, and then the season. And we have numbers, numerical data, and it could be strength numbers, it could be body fat percentage. From a football perspective, it could be knowing the schemes, you know, and cutting down on your errors. But we try to evaluate them at the end of each of those phases, and the goal is to make steady improvement as we move through the year.
On the realignment front, Cincinnati, they go back with West Virginia to the Big East. You guys have kind of been on your own out there.
Yep.
I think that could be tough once again on rivalry for this year with the constantly they get.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it will. Obviously, there's some shared experiences being in the Big East together. There's only about 4.5 hours between the two schools. It's a game that both fan bases can travel to.